Hello, and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I will be discussing why you need a trust. I'll start by defining a trust. I'll talk about the components of the trust, such as the trust deed, the types of trust, the benefits of having a trust, and more generally and specifically why you need a trust. So what is a trust legally? A trust is nothing more than a contract, an agreement between three parties. Those parties are the person who creates the trust, known as the founder, grantor, settlor, can also be called trustor, and trustees, and for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So the trust is a contract, and this contract has two components: the declaration of the trust, which is declaring the trust, the intent, that you intend to create a trust, and the actual stipulations of the agreement are in the indenture, sometimes known as the deed of trust. The three parties of the trust are the creator, the trustees, and the beneficiaries. The trustees manage the affairs of the beneficiaries based on what's in the indenture, based on the trust deed. The trustees can only act based on what has been stated in the declaration of trust and then trust indenture, or deed of trust, whatever you prefer. The creator of the trust has to list and state who the beneficiaries are. And for many countries, the beneficiaries are split into income beneficiaries and capital beneficiaries. Income beneficiaries obviously would receive some income from the trust. Capital beneficiaries will be the true benefactors of trust property or trust assets. Income beneficiaries can be capital beneficiaries. They can be the same thing. All of this will be stated in your trust indenture. The trust deed. The trust deed is the governing document of the trust. It is the actual contract. A trust is nothing more than an agreement. In law, it's a contract. The declaration states your intent to create the trust and may or may not include the purpose of the trust. As I mentioned before, the powers of the trustees will be limited to this governing document. They can be as short as a few pages to hundreds of pages long. The freedom of creating a trust is you can put whatever you want in there as the creator of the trust, whatever you feel is important, whatever you feel is relevant. Now, in this video, I will be sticking primarily to family trusts, but a lot of what I'm saying applies to other types of trusts, and I will do videos in the coming weeks on the other types of trusts and just deeper into trust law as we go along. The power of the trustees, as I mentioned, is limited to what's in the document, while the creator of the trust is essentially handing ownership to trustees. The trustees are not free to do whatever they would like to do with the assets. Now, you may be asking, why would anybody want to give control and ownership of their assets to someone else? Well, I'll go deeper into that later in this video. Now, in the trust deed, you will list not only who the beneficiaries are, and they can be your children, they can be people not related to you, they can be charities. Some people have made their pets the beneficiaries of their trust. All the specifics of how that trust is run will be in the trust deed, including the term. Trusts can have a short term, or they can renew every generation, or at any interval that you want. Now, you may have heard that there are many types of trusts, and that is true. But we can break them down into general categories. The different types can be broken down into general categories. It's either a trust that's created in your lifetime, or it's a trust that is created after you pass, or comes into be after you pass, after you transition this lifetime. Statutory trust operates in the public. Everybody can see that there's a trust created. Everyone who is looking for it, and the trust is generally operating in commerce, getting bank accounts, getting an employee identification number, an EIN number from the tax authorities. The nature of a trust is that it's private. So the beneficiaries won't be known. The person who created the trust may or may not be known. And the trustees are the ones that are actively working in commerce. Trustees work for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Non-statutory trusts are agreements. They can be oral or they can be written. Generally, trusts are written, but they operate in private. And by private, I mean no bank accounts. They operate outside commerce, general commerce. Trusts can also be revocable or irrevocable. With a revocable trust, you have a little bit more freedom to move assets in and out. But oftentimes, the creator of a revocable trust is also one of the trustees. There may be more than one trustees other than the person who created it. But you find in many cases that the person who creates a revocable trust is also one of the trustees or the only trustee, which is fine. But for that reason that you will see later, you give up some privacy. You also give up some tax benefits. With an irrevocable trust, once it's created, the terms cannot be modified. The trust indenture cannot be modified unless you state in your trust agreement the conditions, the specific conditions that would allow the trust to be altered, the trust indenture to be altered. And sometimes that may be a change in economic conditions. It could be a change in law. There may be a law that comes around that prevents you from doing something that you had been doing when you created the trust. So what are the benefits of a trust? Well, since you don't own the trust assets that you've deeded over to the trustee by a lawful agreement, then since you don't own, you can't have your assets attached, be it in a lawsuit or some other lawful process or by operation of law. You're not the owner. Now, you may be controlling the assets as the creator of the trust, or yourself as trustee, because you can also be a trustee in your trust, but you're not the owner. The trust owns the property. And while the strength of creditor protection is in the indenture, so meaning that you may have a trust and you still may lose some creditor protection, but the strength of your creditor protection and your liability protection will be in the skill of the trustees, the knowledge of the trustees in law. Because in law, there's a remedy for everything. Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the situation, there is a remedy. The law is on our side as the people. And generally people feel as though law is against them. That can only be the case if you are not versed in law. Anyone who's deeply versed in law, first thing you notice is that, wow, there's a benefit for everything. There's a remedy for everything. Law is for you. It's just, are you going to take the time? And I specifically say, are you, because we like to give responsibility for law to others, lawyers, attorneys. But it is really our responsibility to know law as it applies to us, because law is life. Now, everyone is familiar with or have heard that only the rich have trust. It is a tool that is used by wealthy people. And by tool, I mean it is an instrument of protecting wealth. It is also an instrument for building wealth. I look at trust as insurance, particularly family trust, as an insurance policy. It's similar to insurance. If you're fearful of losing your assets, that may influence your behavior. to acquire assets. Likely, a person who has no insurance is probably not going to go hiking and mountain climbing on the most dangerous peaks in the world, if knowing that they have a family without insurance. Similarly, with a trust puts you in the mindset, if you don't have one, and if you're not wealthy, however you define wealth, a trust puts you in the mindset to create wealth, because now your efforts will not be lost in your lifetime or after you transition this lifetime. Because a trust provides a clear transfer of title without your assets being diminished through probate or estate taxes to your heirs. While the ownership is not passed to your heirs, the control of the assets is passed to your heirs, because your trustees that you've nominated or the trustees that you've acquired will provide for the management of your trust after you transition. You can also use a trust to operate businesses, but I'll go specifically into business trusts in later videos. The trust is a primary tool used by the wealthy or anyone who wants to use a trust to minimize their tax liability. I'll go deeper into all of these points in upcoming videos, give you a reason to come back. And also mainly just to keep this video short. Something that is normally not discussed when you are learning about trust is using a trust to store family knowledge. Now, in my family trust, I made it clear that my beneficiaries will not have access to the income generated from my trust, from the family trust, unless they learn certain facts about the family. And not just certain facts about the family, I also included trust law, how to manage a trust properly, finance law, financial strategies, books. I actually have in my trust, my family trust, the books that my heirs have to read in order to get income from the trust. So if they're reluctant, that'll be on them. That'll be their choice. If they want to access the benefit, the knowledge of the family, although my trust is irrevocable, that is one aspect of the trust that the trustees and the creator will have to modify. They will have the freedom to modify as necessary. As events that are worthy of being added in the trust come about, they will be added to the trust. And this will be generational. This is a generational item that I included in the trust. So each generation after me will be able to store or add to the bank of family knowledge, as valuable as any other point, any other benefit. Another benefit of the trust is that I'll talk about life insurance trust, also known as irrevocable life insurance trust, in another video, because life insurance trust allow you, specifically with whole life insurance, to generate cash value while you're alive and live off the cash value that's accumulating in your whole life insurance policy. Trusts are not just something for you to use after you pass away, and that's generally not understood in the public. It's not even talked about. It's not even focused on. Trusts are something, and it's generally widely known that trusts are something that the wealthy use to pass their riches from generation to generation. But it's also a tool for you to use at this moment, now. So why do you need a trust? Well, many of the benefits are also the reasons why you need a trust. A trust can be used to provide for you, provide for yourself now, as I just mentioned. And there are many ways to do that. Many ways to do that. A lot of the irrevocable trusts are used to provide for a benefit now. One of the best practices of a irrevocable trust is managing the assets as the creator and as a trustee, you yourself, for the benefit of your children, so that on the day that you pass away, it automatically becomes irrevocable, and now your children are able to enjoy tax benefits that you may not have been able to while it was revocable. But I'll go into that more later. You can provide for your heirs and heir now and later. It's not a mystery that trusts provide, specifically family trusts, are a means for you to provide for your family after you transition from this life. That's generally well known. But what may not be as generally well known is that trusts provide the ultimate privacy of privacies. Governments, courts, creditors respect trust in law. Now, a really creative entity may try to get to the assets in the event of a lawsuit or some litigation, but the privacy of a trust has to be respected in law, and it is. Now, like as I mentioned earlier, the true strength of the trust from creditor and liability protection and privacy will be based on both the skill of the trustee in law and how well the trust document was written. Now, trusts, family trusts in particular, are about responsibility. It's the ultimate responsibility as an individual to create a trust. I personally put creating a trust above any other financial activity. Before getting into even having a bank account, we should have a trust first. But we all create the bank accounts before we may even know about what a trust is, including myself. And why do I say that? The responsibility is generating assets without having the protection puts those assets at risk. So it makes sense to have the insurance before you have the asset. Well, to me it does. Or as soon as you find out that you need protection, you need to create the protection, the so-called insurance. Now, why do I say that trusts are the ultimate responsibility? I say that because with a trust, not only are you providing for yourself now, you are providing for your heirs later, and their heirs, and their heirs. You're taking responsibility for your generation, and you're taking responsibility for yourself. You're taking responsibility for yourself by ensuring that what you create is protected, that the assets you generate in this lifetime are protected. You're taking responsibility to generate assets now with the intent that these assets will be passed on to your heirs later. This is the ultimate responsibility. It's providing for others as well as yourself. Doing what you can in this lifetime to create peace, enjoyment, happiness, security for yourself now and your heirs later. This is the ultimate responsibility. Trust is not just a tool to maintain wealth for rich people. It is a tool for everyone to generate and maintain wealth, riches, security, comfort. And you may say, well, I'll never be rich. I'll never be that rich where I need a trust. Well, maybe not. Doesn't stop you from trying unless you're willing to give in and admit defeat in this lifetime. Or you can say, well, I'll create the foundation. I'll create my trust now and provide a method of teaching and reaching my family members so that they understand the value of the trust, and that with each generation we add value to the trust. So while you may not ever reach millionaire, super millionaire, billionaire status, you create the foundations for those to come into that. And it's a mindset, it's a process, it's a formula that's followed. 1, 2, 3. So I'll leave it at that. I'll do more videos that go more deeper into the topics that I've just lightly glossed over today. But thank you for watching. I appreciate your time, and I hope you got something valuable from this video. Enjoy your day.